let's talk about decentralized exchanges. In recent months, there's been an absolute explosion of new tokens hitting the cryptocurrency market. These tokens are predominantly linked to ICOs or initial coin offerings that are happening, and as a result, a lot of people out there are looking for liquidity of those tokens that they're purchasing. Now, as this was all new, things were going pretty smoothly the last few months, with exchanges like Bittrex and Poloniex pretty quickly listing these tokens just a week or two after the token sales. For those unaware, Bittrex and Poloniex are centralized exchanges similar to the stock exchange, but you can trade crypto assets, so token A for token B, or token A to Bitcoin or Ethereum. So things were going smoothly, but more recently, with looming SEC regulation and unclear guidelines on what constitutes a security, these exchanges have been a little bit spooked, and they aren't listing ICO tokens as quickly as they were previously. A good example of this is that Bittrex haven't actually listed an ICO token as of early August at the time of filming. So people are slowly starting to panic that they might not be able to sell these ICO tokens any longer on these exchanges. So they become essentially non-liquid. In addition, centralized exchanges just have a pretty bad history in terms of security. When you're trusting an exchange like Bittrex, Poloniex, Coinbase, whatever, you're trusting them to hold all of your funds, and very often they don't give you the private keys to access them. A simple Google search will show you the bad history we have here, but if you look at examples such as Mt. Gox and Cryptsy, there's definitely a precedent for centralized exchanges not being a very alluring or secure place to store your tokens. You really want to get your tokens in and out of centralized exchanges as quickly as possible to reduce the risk of them getting hacked and you losing everything. Decentralized exchanges aren't a new concept. The topic has been around for a while, and they've actually been possible for quite a while thanks to Ethereum and smart contracts. And they've also been possible on Bitcoin using something called a hashed time lock contract, but adoption of this option has been low. Now that more and more people are getting familiar with coding smart contracts on Ethereum, combined with a rush of tokens that suddenly need to be traded, there's kind of a very good product market fit there for this decentralized exchange technology. So today I'm going to cover some of the big players coming down the pipeline as it relates to decentralized exchanges. I want to preface this by saying yes, I am aware that there are decentralized exchanges that exist on other blockchains such as Waves. I'm not going to cover those today because most of the volume demand in terms of trading tokens today is around ERC20 tokens, which are Ethereum based. So I'm just going to focus on decentralized exchanges in the Ethereum space for this video. The first I'm going to cover is a decentralized exchange called EtherDelta. EtherDelta has actually been around for a while. It was one of the first Ethereum based decentralized exchanges. And it's been around since last year, and it's currently active, so you can go and trade on it today. All of the funds on the EtherDelta exchange are handled by this unified smart contract. So that means when you want to trade something, you send those tokens into this smart contract address on the Ethereum network. This has a couple of benefits that people like. Namely, you don't have to register for anything, but secondly, you're also not trusting a centralized server or company with your tokens. You're simply putting them over into the EtherDelta contract, and you can pull them out at any time. So that whole risk I was talking about with centralized exchanges getting hacked goes away. This is going to be a pretty common paradigm that will apply across all the technologies I'm talking about today. The whole security aspect is taken care of because of smart contracts. There's no sending your funds to a company like Coinbase or Bittrex who could run off with them or get hacked. This is kind of just a stock standard expectation of decentralized exchanges. It's not a special feature, and it doesn't really set any of them apart. What's going to set the platforms I'm talking about today apart is how they manage orders and facilitate trades between buyers and sellers. One of the tenets of EtherDelta is that they try to keep as much of the trading on-chain. And by that, I mean they want to keep most of this trustless and in the Ethereum blockchain, which means that whenever an order is executed and settled, it's all happening in an Ethereum block, and it's immutable, stored in the blockchain. One of the challenges that these decentralized exchanges face, though, is that Ethereum blocks aren't mined fast enough for high-frequency trading. So as such, EtherDelta actually has a semi-centralized service for an off-chain order book. When you as a buyer or seller on EtherDelta want to submit an order, you sign a message, you don't submit it to the blockchain, and then that gets stored in this off-chain solution that EtherDelta has to replace an order book. If you've ever tried to use EtherDelta, you've probably been pretty confused because it doesn't function like a regular exchange. This stems from the fact that EtherDelta only supports what are called resting orders. There is no automatic matching between buy and sell orders. So if you've used a traditional exchange like Bittrex, you're probably used to setting up a sell order, and you say you want to sell X many number of tokens, then you can kind of set and forget it. And the automatic trading engine will match your sell order with a buyer once the price reaches what you wanted to sell at, and everything will be filled. EtherDelta and decentralized exchanges in general don't work this way. Instead, everything is manual. So when you place a sell order, it won't be picked up unless a human on the other end of the equation manually clicks that sell order and says, yes, I want to buy that up. Inversely, if you set a buy order, it won't automatically be filled either. A seller has to click your buy order in the EtherDelta order book to then fulfill that order. This is kind of clunky, and it has all sorts of impacts on liquidity and the way that the order book balances out. And for a person who's familiar with using traditional exchanges, be it Bittrex or Coinbase, or even the actual stock exchange and things like E-Trade, it's very, very different. And because EtherDelta has this centralized relayer for its order book, which happens off-chain, but then the trades are actually settled on-chain once somebody picks up a sell or a buy order, this often gets out of sync and things get slow. So there's actually a chance that when you say, yes, I want to buy this sell order on EtherDelta, somebody else might have already fulfilled that, and your order will fail when you actually pay the cost to submit it to the blockchain. This problem, matched with the fact that everything's on-chain, actually makes trading on something like EtherDelta pretty expensive. Because remember, every transaction on Ethereum right now costs upwards of 20 to 30 cents. And if you're submitting a bunch of orders which only have a 50-50 chance of actually being picked up because somebody might have already fulfilled them, there's a good chance you're literally throwing money away. And because of the lack of automatic matching, there's all sorts of arbitrage opportunities that happen where stale orders could be picked up and manipulated. It's just not fun. Now with something like EtherDelta, you can cancel orders once you've submitted them, but this actually opens another risk, which is called front running. And the simplest explanation of this is that because all the trades are being settled on-chain, miners of Ethereum have full visibility into them. So if you submitted an order on EtherDelta yesterday, but today it's actually not a really good deal and you want to cancel it, because you signed that order initially, a miner could still actually execute it. That's called front running, and be the counterparty on the other end. So you lose money and the miners make more money because they're executing your canceled orders. This is really far in the future, and I don't think it's something we're going to see this year or maybe even in the first half of next year. The technology needs to be proven out. I imagine Omega One might be able to get past this because it's sourcing some of its liquidity from centralized exchanges, so it will be able to do, I think, cross-chain. And lastly, because most of these exchange protocols I've described kind of involve a shift in paradigms of how people are used to interacting with exchanges, then I think there's going to be some inertia towards the traditional centralized exchanges, and it's going to be harder to pull users over, especially if these decentralized exchanges are more costly or slower to use upfront. The benefits of using decentralized exchanges have to quickly outweigh that of centralized exchanges in order to shift the bulk of traders over from centralized to decentralized and build enough liquidity pool so that it's worthwhile going and trading on them. If there's low liquidity in these markets, I just think it's a real barrier to their success. So that's my breakdown of decentralized exchanges. A lot coming in the works. I think we're still in the very early days, and it's probably going to be a good 6 to 12 months before we see one that's reliable and you can use on a daily basis.
Buy any of these coins. Buy any of these coins. Buy any of these coins.